The metal shard of the observation dome creaked under Dr. Nathan Hayes' palm as he stared into the vast emptiness of space. Centuries of human technological advancement, decades of personal research, and it had come to this. A diplomatic meeting with beings who saw humanity as nothing more than insects to be crushed beneath their crystalline appendages. The Vosteri embassy ship hung in the void beyond the glass, a massive structure of living crystal and biomechanical components that defied human engineering principles. It didn't so much orbit Earth as loomed over it, a predator contemplating when to strike rather than if. "They're docking, Doctor," Lieutenant Keller announced, her voice tight with controlled fear. "ETA 3 minutes." Nathan nodded, straightening his plain Navy uniform, deliberately unadorned, per the Vostari's instructions. They considered human decorations false signifiers of imagined status. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd been selected precisely because of his status as Earth's foremost xenobiologist. "Remember," Nathan said to the small team of diplomats and scientists, "no sudden movements, no displays of emotion, and absolutely no challenges to their statements, no matter how provocative." Ambassador Travers, a seasoned diplomat with silver-streaked hair, exhaled slowly. "They've rejected every proposal we've offered. This meeting feels like a formality before whatever they've planned." "Then we make this formality count," Nathan replied, hiding his own trembling hands behind his back. The docking mechanism engaged with a resonant hum that vibrated through the station's superstructure. Air pressure equalized with a hiss, and for 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then they emerged. The first Vostari to enter stood nearly 9 feet tall, its crystalline exoskeleton catching the station's lights and fracturing them into prismatic patterns across the walls. Unlike the misleadingly beautiful images transmitted during first contact, in person the alien's body revealed its true nature, a perfect evolutionary killing machine. Its torso consisted of overlapping plates of transparent but impenetrable crystal, beneath which pulsed organs of impossible complexity. 6 limbs, 4 manipulator arms, and 2 powerful legs moved with fluid grace despite their apparent mineral composition, but it was the head that triggered primal terror in every human present. A featureless crystalline dome housing a neural mesh, visible as flickers of bioluminescent energy, with sensory apparatus that could perceive spectrums humans couldn't even name, where a human face would display expression. The Vostari possessed only a series of vibrating crystalline structures that generated their language, a series of harmonics too complex for human vocal cords to reproduce. The translator implanted behind Nathan's ear rendered the sound into English. "You will address the emissary with appropriate deference," announced the first Vostari, apparently some kind of herald. Behind it entered a larger specimen, its crystal structure tinged with amber hues that Nathan recognized as signs of advanced age. This Vostari wore no clothing or insignia. They considered such things beneath them, but carried what appeared to be a staff made of the same living crystal as their bodies. "I am X," the translator rendered in a flat, emotionless tone. "Emissary of the crystalline dominion. I have reviewed your species' history and find it inefficient." Ambassador Travers stepped forward with practiced diplomatic poise. "Emissary Zorvex, on behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we welcome you." The Vasari's staff struck the floor, sending a harmonic vibration through the room that made Nathan's teeth ache. "You misunderstand your position," Zorvex interrupted. "This is not a diplomatic exchange between equals. This is an assessment of whether your species deserves continued existence." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Our analyses indicate your civilization has reached its optimal point for harvesting," the emissary continued. "Your technology has advanced sufficiently to be of minor interest, yet you have not developed the means to resist us effectively." Nathan felt his heart hammering against his ribs. The Vostari weren't here to negotiate. They were here to announce terms of surrender or extinction. "Harvesting?" Travers asked, voice barely steady. "Your biomass and planetary resources will be converted to support Vosteri expansion." Zorvex explained, as casually as if discussing the weather. "Those humans with genetic configurations of interest will be preserved for study. The remainder are superfluous." The room fell silent. Terror had frozen everyone in place. Nathan found himself stepping forward, ignoring protocol. "Why tell us this? Why not simply begin your harvesting?" The crystalline structures that served as Jovex's speech apparatus vibrated in what the translator rendered as amusement. Psychological study. Your species' reaction to inevitable doom provides valuable data. The emissary moved closer to Nathan, towering over him. Up close, Nathan could see the intricate lattice of the alien's crystal structure, millions of years of evolution creating something beyond human comprehension. He felt like a Neanderthal facing a modern tank. Your species evolved on a planet of relative stability, Zorvex observed. The Vosathari homeworld experiences radiation storms that would liquefy your organs within seconds. Our biology adapted by developing crystalline structures capable of not merely deflecting radiation, but absorbing and channeling it. The emissary flexed one limb, and Nathan watched in horrified fascination as energy visibly coursed through pathways in the crystal. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your strongest materials cannot contain us. Your computational systems are trivial compared to our neural lattices. Your existence continues only because we find your responses to stimuli informative. Ambassador Travers had regained his composure. Surely we can find some arrangement. There is nothing you possess that we cannot take, Zorvex interrupted. Nothing you can create that we cannot replicate more efficiently. You persist in the delusion that you have agency in this exchange. You do not. Nathan's scientific mind raced, cataloguing every detail of the Vostari physiology, searching desperately for some weakness, some avenue of negotiation. However, the emissary continued, we are not without scientific curiosity. Before implementation of full harvesting protocols, we will permit a demonstration. Demonstration? Nathan asked. Select your species' most capable warrior. They will face Kara of X, my protege. The emissary gestured to a slightly smaller Vostari that had remained motionless by the airlock. If your champion can inflict any damage whatsoever, we will consider limited preservation zones for your species. Nathan studied Carvex, younger than the emissary but still physically imposing, its crystal structure humming with barely contained energy. And if our champion fails, Travers asked, then harvesting begins immediately. Starting with this station and all aboard it, Zorvex stated. You have one planetary rotation to select your champion. The combat will occur here, with your world watching. With that, the Vostari delegation turned and departed, crystal limbs clicking against the floor in perfect rhythm. As soon as the airlock sealed, chaos erupted in the observation dome. This is insane! Lieutenant Keller exclaimed. They want us to send someone to die on camera as entertainment. We need to alert Earth's defense forces. Someone else suggested. Didn't you hear them? Another voice countered. Our weapons are useless. Nathan remained silent, his mind working on a different track. He'd noticed something during the exchange, something in the way the Vossari crystal structure responded to the station's environmental systems. We need to comply, Ambassador Travers finally declared, silencing the room. And we need our best military special forces, combat athletes, anyone who might stand a chance. It won't matter, Nathan said quietly, drawing everyone's attention. Did you see their structure? That's not just armor, it's their body. Bullets would ricochet, blades would shatter, even directed energy weapons would likely be absorbed and redirected. So you're saying it's hopeless? Keller demanded. No, Nathan replied, his voice finding new strength. I'm saying we need something they don't expect. Someone who thinks differently. He turned to face the viewport, Earth hanging blue and vulnerable beyond. The crushing weight of responsibility settled onto his shoulders. I'll do it, he announced. The room fell silent again, this time in shock. You? Ambassador Travers asked incredulously. Nathan, you're a scientist, not a fighter. Exactly, Nathan said. They're expecting us to send our strongest warrior, someone who'll try to match their physical power. That's a game we can't win. He turned back to the group, a desperate plan forming in his mind. But I've studied their biology for the past 3 years. I've noticed patterns in their crystalline structure, potential resonance points, things a warrior wouldn't look for. You'd be sacrificing yourself, Keller said softly. Maybe, Nathan admitted. Probably. But if there's even a small chance I can find a weakness. He left the thought unfinished. For the next 20 hours, Nathan immersed himself in Versailles biological data. He reviewed every scan, every spectral analysis, every recorded frequency their crystalline bodies had emitted. Sleep was impossible with humanity's fate hanging in the balance. When the Vosari returned, the observation dome had been cleared of all furniture. Earth's leaders watched via secure transmission, along with billions of terrified citizens who had been told only that a diplomatic demonstration would occur. HFY surveyed the room with what Nathan interpreted as surprise. "Where is your champion?" "I am Earth's champion." Nathan stepped forward wearing nothing but a simple jumpsuit. The crystalline structures that formed the emissary's speech apparatus vibrated in what translated as laughter. "You send a scientist to face a warrior? Your species is more irrational than our studies suggested." Karvek stepped forward, nearly 8 feet of living crystal, pulsing with energy that made the air around it shimmer. "The terms remain," Zorvex announced. "If your champion inflicts any damage, we will establish preservation zones. If not, harvesting begins immediately." Nathan nodded, pulse racing as adrenaline flooded his system. He'd spent his life studying alien biology, never imagining he'd face it in combat. "Combat initiates now," the emissary declared. Karvex moved with shocking speed, crystal limbs blurring as it closed the distance between them. Nathan barely dodged the first strike, feeling the air displacement as a crystalline appendage missed his head by inches. The Vasari's second attack caught him across the ribs, sending him sprawling across the floor, gasping as pain exploded through his torso. Probably fractured ribs, his analytical mind noted, even as survival instinct screamed for him to move. He rolled away from the next strike, which left a crack in the floor where his head had been. The Vostari wasn't just trying to defeat him, it was trying to kill him efficiently. Nathan scrambled to his feet, circling away from his opponent. Every movement sent daggers of pain through his chest. The observation dome's lighting reflected off Karvex's crystalline body, creating disorienting patterns. "Your species' physical inferiority is even more pronounced than our models predicted," Karvex communicated, the translator rendering its harmonic vibrations into mocking words. Nathan didn't waste breath responding. Instead, he watched the energy patterns flowing through the Vasari's crystal structure, looking for the resonance points he'd identified in his research. Karvex attacked again, a sweeping motion aimed at Nathan's legs. He jumped, higher than the alien expected, and in that brief moment of surprise, Nathan saw his opening, a nexus point where energy pathways converged near what would be the Vastari's equivalent of a sternum. He landed awkwardly, pain lancing through his injured ribs, but remained standing. Blood trickled from his lip where he'd bitten it during the first impact. "Pitiful," Karvex communicated. "Is this truly Earth's best offering?" Nathan wiped blood from his mouth, a strange calm settling over him despite his injuries. He'd found what he is looking for, a potential weakness. Now he just needed to exploit it, assuming he lived long enough. "No," Nathan replied, straightening despite the pain. "I'm not our strongest, or our fastest, or our most skilled fighter." He took a step forward, rather than retreating as Karvex clearly expected. "But we humans didn't evolve to be the strongest species on our planet," Nathan continued, taking another step. "We evolved to be the most adaptable, the most innovative, the most stubborn." His eyes locked onto the nexus point in Karvex's crystal structure, determination hardening his gaze. "And we never ever give up." Karvex's crystalline arm slashed through the air with a sound like shattering glass, missing Nathan's face by millimeters as he stumbled backward. The observation dome's reinforced flooring vibrated with each impact, sending waves of pain through Nathan's already fractured ribs. "Your declaration of resilience is noted, scientist," the Vasari communicated, its harmonic voice rendered flat by the translator. "It changes nothing." The alien's next strike connected, catching Nathan across his left shoulder. The impact lifted him off his feet and sent him crashing into the viewport. His collarbones snapped with an audible crack that echoed through the chamber, and for 3 desperate heartbeats, he couldn't breathe through the white-hot agony. On Earth below and across human colonies, billions watched in horrified silence. In the secure command bunker beneath Geneva, military leaders prepared extinction-level countermeasures that everyone knew would be futile, and in the observation dome, Nathan Hazer's blood smeared the reinforced glass as he slid to the floor, vision swimming with black spots. "You experience pain," Karvex observed, approaching with methodical precision. "The Vostari evolved beyond such inefficient biological warnings centuries ago. Nathan forced himself upright, each movement sending lightning bolts of agony through his broken collarbones. His left arm hung useless, and breathing felt like inhaling fire, but his eyes remained fixed on the energy nexus in the Vostari's crystalline structure. Pain, Nathan managed, spitting blood, is information. And I've always been good at processing information. 20 years earlier, 10-year-old Nathan had lain in a hospital bed, his body ravaged by a rare autoimmune disease that had claimed his parents and sister. The doctors had given him weeks to live. In that sterile room, surrounded by beeping monitors, young Nathan had made a decision. If his body was destroying itself, he would understand exactly how it worked. He demanded medical textbooks, then more advanced ones, then research papers. By the time the experimental treatment saved his life 6 months later, he'd already charted his course into xenobiology. Pain was an old companion. Carvex struck again, this time with calculated restraint, clearly under orders to prolong the demonstration. The blow caught Nathan in his already damaged ribs, and he felt 2 more snap with sickening clarity. He collapsed to his knees, coughing blood onto the polished floor. "Your organic fragility is remarkable," the Vostari commented, circling him like a predator toying with dying prey. "Our studies show even minimal applications of force cause cascading systems failures in human physiology." Nathan's scientific mind continued cataloging details even through the fog of pain. The energy flow through Carvex's crystal structure followed patterns, rhythmic pulses that reminded him of something he'd observed in his lab years ago. The thought flickered tantalizingly at the edge of his consciousness, just beyond his grasp. "Then why?" Nathan forced himself back to his feet, swaying. "Am I still standing?" Confusion registered in the subtle shift of Carvex's crystalline facets. "A statistical anomaly. Your biological functions should be compromised beyond recovery." "That's your first mistake," Nathan gasped, taking an unsteady step forward rather than retreating. "Treating us as statistics instead of individuals." From the observation platform, Ambassador Travers watched with a mixture of horror and bewildered admiration. Lieutenant Keller had turned away, unable to witness what seemed like Nathan's slow execution. X of X, the elder Vostari emissary, leaned forward with what registered as increasing interest. "The specimen's behavioral patterns deviate from projections," he communicated to his subordinates. "Observe closely." Nathan took another step toward Carvex, blood now soaking the front of his jumpsuit from his internal indiri. His mind raced through possibilities. The crystalline structure had to have vulnerabilities. Perfect systems didn't exist in nature. Everything had trade-offs, evolutionary compromises. Carvex attacked again, this time with 4 limbs simultaneously, a blur of crystalline edges aimed at Nathan from multiple angles. Nathan dropped and rolled, screaming as his broken bones ground together, but managed to avoid the worst of the assault. One crystal edge sliced across his back, laying open a 6-inch gash that immediately soaked his jumpsuit with warm blood. "You cannot win," Carvex stated, the translator rendering what might have been frustration. "Your continued resistance defies logical analysis." Nathan struggled back to his feet, vision tunneling from blood loss and shock. "Human history," he wheezed, "is full of victories that defied logical analysis." The memory crystallized suddenly in his mind, an experiment from 5 years ago. His team had been studying crystalline xenoforms from the Proxima Centauri system, simple organisms with silicon-based structures. They'd discovered that certain resonant frequencies could disrupt the lattice bonds, causing structural disintegration. Could the Vostari, despite their advanced evolution, retain similar vulnerabilities? Carvex lunged forward again, but this time Nathan didn't try to dodge completely. Instead, he pivoted, allowing one crystalline appendage to graze his already injured shoulder while he observed the energy flow up close. The pain nearly caused him to black out, but he saw what he needed, the momentary fluctuation in the energy pathways as the Vostari made physical contact. "Humans evolved as prey animals," Nathan said, his voice stronger despite his failing body. "Before we were predators, we were hunted. We learned to observe, to understand, to find weaknesses. And yet you remain physically inferior," Carvex responded, circling again. "We also evolved as social creatures." Nathan coughed, more blood spattering the floor. "Right now, billions of humans are watching this. Do you know what they're doing?" The Vostari paused, crystalline structures vibrating in what might have been curiosity. "They're looking for patterns. just like I am. Thousands of scientists, millions of observers, all processing what they're seeing, all thinking about how to defeat you. One human might fail, but humanity adapts. For the first time, uncertainty registered in Carvex's movements. A microscopic hesitation, an irrelevant observation, the Vostari responded. None will survive to implement theoretical countermeasures. Nathan laughed, a wet, agonizing sound that sent fresh blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. You still don't get it. We don't need to survive to win. We just need to show it's possible. With shocking suddenness, Nathan launched himself forward, directly at Carvex. The move was so unexpected, so contrary to self-preservation, that the Vostari actually stepped back. In that moment of surprise, Nathan did the unthinkable. He grabbed onto one of Carvex's lower limbs. Pain exploded through his hands as the crystalline edges sliced into his palms, but he held on, pressing his bloodied fingers against the precise junction point he'd identified. From the observation platform, stunned silence fell as humans and Vostari alike watched the seemingly suicidal action. Release immediately, Carvex commanded, shaking the limb to dislodge Nathan. The violent motion sent waves of agony through Nathan's broken body, but he clung to the crystalline limb with blood-slicked hands, focusing all his remaining strength on maintaining contact with that specific point in the alien's structure. Years before, as a visiting researcher at CERN, Nathan had witnessed a demonstration of sympathetic resonance, how objects with matching natural frequencies could transfer energy between them. Even the strongest materials could be compromised by exposing them to their resonant frequency. Blood from Nathan's lacerations trickled along the crystalline surface, and where it made contact, microscopic reactions began occurring. Human blood, iron-rich, saline, and at precisely 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, created a conductive matrix along the living crystal's surface. Your attempts are futile, Carvex communicated, but a note of confusion had entered the translated voice. Release or be dismembered. Nathan couldn't respond. All his focus was on maintaining the connection, on channeling his body's electrical impulses through the blood medium and into the Vostari's crystalline structure. His vision darkened at the edges, consciousness slipping as blood loss and trauma took their toll. On the observation platform, Carvex suddenly straightened, crystalline structures vibrating in what translated as alarm. Carvex, disengage immediately. But it was too late. Where Nathan's blood made contact with the crystalline structure, something unexpected had begun happening. Microscopic fracture lines appeared, spreading like ice on a winter pond, following the energy pathways Nathan had identified earlier. Carvex emitted a harmonic scream that the translator couldn't render, violently flinging Nathan across the chamber. He hit the wall and collapsed in a broken heap, barely conscious, blood pooling beneath him. The Vostari warrior staggered, examining its affected limb with obvious distress. The crystalline structure was visibly compromised, not broken, but distinctly damaged. Hairline fractures spread along energy pathways, disrupting the perfect lattice. Impossible, Carvex communicated, moving forward to examine the injury. The human's biological material should not be capable of affecting our crystalline matrix. Through the haze of approaching unconsciousness, Nathan smiled. His hypothesis had been correct. The Vostari's crystalline structures were vulnerable to specific resonant interactions. Human blood, with its unique combination of iron, electrolytes and temperature, created unexpected reactions with their living crystal. Harvesting protocols will proceed as planned, Carvex announced, but the usual confidence had disappeared from the translated voice. This anomaly requires further study. Nathan forced his eyes open one last time, meeting the elder Vostari's gaze. You've never encountered a species like us, he whispered, blood bubbling from his lips. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We fight for our children, for our future, for the idea that intelligence and compassion matter more than strength. Medical personnel rushed forward as Nathan's eyes fluttered closed, his vital signs plummeting. Lieutenant Keller knelt beside him, pressing emergency trauma patches to his worst wound. Stay with us, Doctor, she urged, her voice cracking. You did it. You damaged it. The deal stands. On the observation platform, the Vostari delegation had entered what appeared to be an agitated debate. Crystalline structures vibrating in complex harmonic patterns too rapid for the translator to process. Carvex examined the spreading fracture pattern on its limb with what could only be described as consternation. This outcome was not projected in any simulation. Solvex finally communicated. The human's actions defy evolutionary logic. Self-sacrifice contradicts survival imperatives. Ambassador Travers stepped forward, seizing the moment of uncertainty. Perhaps your understanding of evolutionary imperatives is incomplete, emissary. Humans evolved not just as individuals, but as communities. Sometimes the survival of one is sacrificed for the many. As medical personnel fought to stabilize Nathan's failing body, Zorvex approached, looming over the broken human. For a long moment, the ancient crystalline being observed the desperate medical efforts, the blood, the determination on the faces of the human medical team. "The terms of our agreement have been met," the emissary finally announced. "The human inflicted damage, demonstrating unexpected capabilities. Preservation zones will be established as promised." A ripple of cautious relief spread through the human observers. However, Zorvex continued, "This incident requires reassessment of human potential. Your species harbors unpredicted adaptations." In the medical bay where Nathan had been rushed, machines fought to keep him alive. His heart had stopped twice during transport, only to restart after aggressive intervention. Scans showed catastrophic internal injuries, ruptured organs, shattered bones, brain hemorrhaging. But his neural activity remained strong, defying medical explanation. Even unconscious, Nathan Hayes continued fighting. And on the foe's Thari embassy ship, Carvex watched in growing alarm as the fracture lines continued spreading through its crystalline structure, following unpredictable patterns that the most advanced Vostari healing techniques couldn't arrest. Something fundamental had changed in the balance of power between the species. The question now was whether Nathan would survive to see what his sacrifice had accomplished, and whether it would be enough to save humanity from extinction. Nathan Hayes opened his eyes. That simple act defied medical science. The doctors had prepared Ambassador Travers for the worst: catastrophic brain damage, permanent vegetative state, or a merciful death. No human should have survived what Nathan had endured. Yet here he was, 27 days later, conscious in a medical bay aboard the International Station. "Don't try to speak," Dr. Lin cautioned, checking vital signs with practiced efficiency. "Your larynx was damaged in the confrontation." Nathan blinked in acknowledgement, cataloguing his condition with detached scientific curiosity. Synthetic skin covered 40% of his body. Microceramic bone replacements supported his shattered skeleton. His left lung had been regrown using experimental technique. Pain dampeners hummed at the base of his skull. But he was alive, and more importantly, so was humanity. Through the viewport beside his bed, Earth still hung in the void, unharmed. No harvesting protocols had begun. The Vostari embassy ship remained in orbit, but had taken no hostile action. "They've been waiting for you to wake up," Ambassador Travers said, entering the medical bay. Silver air framed a face etched with new lines of exhaustion. "The emissary has requested a second meeting, specifically with you." Nathan raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Carvex is dying," Travers explained. "The damage you inflicted, it's spreading. Their entire delegation is in disarray. They've tried everything to halt the crystalline degradation." Nathan gestured weakly for something to write with. Dr. Lin handed him a tablet, which he painfully tempered with bandaged fingers. "Biological exchange. Resonance cascade. Need to see Carvex." "That's exactly what they're requesting," Travers replied. "But Nathan, you're in no condition." Nathan fixed him with a stare of such intensity that the ambassador fell silent. Possibility of mutual extinction. Those 4 words mobilized resources. Within hours, a specialized medical transport had been prepared. Despite vehement medical objections, Nathan was carefully transferred to a mobility chair equipped with life support systems. His broken body might be failing, but his mind remained razor sharp. The meeting was set for the neutral ground of the observation dome where the initial confrontation had occurred. Security personnel from both species lined the walls, tension radiating from them like heat from dying stars. When the Vostari delegation entered, Nathan's scientific detachment momentarily faltered. Her eggs moved with obvious difficulty, the once seamless crystalline body, now fractured with thousands of spreading fissure lines. Where the fractures had begun at the point of contact with Nathan's blood, they now enunced more than 60% of the alien's structure. Light refracted through the damaged crystal in dissonant patterns, and the harmonics of the Vostari's speech sounded distorted. Behind Carvex, Jovex entered with noticeably less imperial confidence than before, The elder emissary's crystal structure showed minor fracture patterns as well, though nowhere near as advanced as his protégés. Dr. Hayes, the translator, rendered Zovex's harmonic speech. You have created an unexpected situation. Nathan's fingers laboriously tapped out words that appeared on a display screen. Not intentional. Seeking understanding. Our crystalline composition is degrading, Zovex stated. The phenomenon began at the point of contact with your blood and continues to spread, despite all interventions. Our most advanced technologies cannot halt the progression. Nathan nodded, already having anticipated this. He tapped. Resonant frequency disruption. Human biochemistry catalyzed unexpected reaction. A ripple passed through the Vosteri delegation, what might have been alarm or agitation. This suggests a devastating possibility. Zovex's harmonic response carried undertones the translator rendered as dread. Your species is inherently toxic to ours, and potentially vice versa. Nathan gestured toward a research console nearby. With assistance, he was positioned before it and began accessing data collected during his recovery. Complex molecular models appeared on the central display, visible to both delegations. My cellular structure shows crystalline microformations, beginning in wounds where I contacted Carvex. The revelation sent shockwaves through both groups. Nathan had confirmed what the medical team had discovered, but kept classified. He was undergoing a subtle but accelerating transformation at the cellular level. The same resonant principles that damaged the Visari were reshaping his human biology. Then mutual extinction is inevitable, Zovix concluded. Contact between our species triggers molecular reexecution that neither can survive. Nathan shook his head, wincing at the pain even that small movement caused. His fingers moved with renewed urgencies. Not extinction. Adaptation. He brought up new models showing the progression in his cellular structure. Unlike Carvex's degradation, the crystalline formations in Nathan's tissues appeared to be integrating with his existing biology, creating hybrid structures that maintained function while transforming. Human adaptability. Our evolutionary advantage. Impossible, one of the Vociferi scientists communicated. Biological structures cannot harmonize across such diverse foundations. In response, Nathan tapped a command that displayed his latest medical scans. The images showed unmistakable evidence. Where the crystalline formations had fully integrated, his tissues were regenerating at an accelerated rate. We evolved to incorporate foreign elements, from symbiotic gut bacteria to repurposed viral DNA in our genome. Adaptation is our strength. He gestured toward Carvex, whose degradation had visibly progressed even during this short meeting. Your species evolved perfect resistance. Crystalline structure repels all threats, but perfection is static. No mechanism for incorporating new patterns. Xervex's crystalline structures vibrated in what the translator rendered as profound disturbance. You suggest your weakness, vulnerability to change, is actually strength. Nathan nodded, then tapped. Strength and weakness are perspectives. What matters is survival. With painful effort, Nathan gestured for his mobility chair to be moved closer to Carvex. Security personnel tensed, but both ambassadors signaled them to allow it. When he was positioned directly before the dying Vociferi warrior, Nathan did something that stunned both delegations. He removed the protective covering from his hand, exposing raw, partially healed tissue where crystalline microstructures glinted beneath the surface. I believe I can help you. How? Carvex communicated. The harmonics distinctly weaker than before. The resonance works both ways. My adaptation might stabilize your degradation. This is unprecedented, Zovex objected. There is no scientific basis. Exactly, Nathan interrupted. Unprecedented problems require unprecedented solutions. He looked directly at Carvex, whose crystalline facets were growing increasingly clouded as the degradation reached critical systems. I offer this freely, your choice. The room fell silent. In that moment, the fundamental philosophical gulf between the species stood in stark relief, a civilization built on domination and perfect resistance, facing one built on adaptation and cooperation. After what seemed an eternity, Carvex extended a fractured crystalline appendage toward Nathan's exposed hand. Why would you attempt to save the being that nearly killed you? The translator rendered genuine confusion in the dying warrior's harmonics. Nathan's response appeared slowly on the screen. Because that's who we are. We save lives when we can. even former enemies. Their hands met, human flesh interlaced with living crystal. At the point of contact, a soft blue glow emerged, spreading along the fracture lines in Carvex's structure and simultaneously illuminating the veins in Nathan's arm. Pain exploded through Nathan's consciousness as his partially crystallized cells actively responded to the Vosteri biology. If his hypothesis was wrong, this contact might kill them both. But if he was right, the glow intensified, becoming almost blinding. Scientists from both species rushed forward with scanning equipment, recording the unprecedented biological exchange occurring before them. "The fracture progression is slowing," one of the Vosteri scientists reported, harmonic voice rising in astonishment. "Dr. Hayes' vital signs are stabilizing," Dr. Lin countered, equally amazed. For 7 minutes, human and Vosteri remained connected, the blue luminescence gradually subsiding until it disappeared entirely. When Nathan finally withdrew his hand, the assembled observers gasped in unison. Where their hands had touched, both beings had transformed. A small patch of Nathan's skin now contained perfectly integrated crystalline structures that caught and refracted light, and on Carvex's appendage, a section of living crystal had taken on a more organic, flexible quality reminiscent of human tissue. "The crystalline degradation has halted completely," the Vosteri scientist confirmed after scanning Carvex theory, and the affected areas show signs of regenerative integration. Nathan's medical monitors showed similar results. The uncontrolled crystalline formations in his cells had stabilized into a sustainable hybrid structure, neither fully human nor Vostari, but something new. "Symbiogenesis," Nathan typed, scientific excitement overriding his exhaustion. "Revolutionary evolutionary event." Dinofax approached, examining both Nathan and Carvex with all sensory apparatus. "In millennia of Vostari expansion, we have never encountered a species capable of changing us. And we've never encountered one that could change us this way either," Nathan responded. "Mutation usually takes generations." Ambassador Travers stepped forward. "What does this mean for our species' relations?" The question hung in the air, weighted with implications for billions of lives. Carvex's crystalline structures vibrated in complex patterns before the translator rendered a response. "The harvesting protocols are permanently suspended. Your world will not be consumed." A wave of relief passed through the human delegation, but Nathan's attention remained fixed on the Vostari emissary, sensing there was more. "Our assessment was incomplete," Sorvex continued, each harmonic syllable seeming to cost the ancient being considerable effort. "The crystalline dominion has expanded for millions of years based on the principle that stronger forms naturally supplant weaker ones. We believed this was universal law." The emissary gestured toward Nathan and Carvex, "but what we witness here suggests a different possibility, that diversity of form and adaptation creates strength perfect uniformity cannot achieve." Nathan smiled faintly and typed, "Evolution isn't just about being stronger, it's about finding new ways to survive." 3 months later, the observation dome had been transformed into what both species now called the Symphony Chamber. At its center stood a remarkable structure, a towering double helix composed half of human-engineered materials and half of living Visaria crystal, spiraling upward toward the stars. Nathan Hayes, now walking with only slight assistance from an exoskeletal support, stood beside Carvex, whose crystalline body had stabilized with a new organic crystalline hybrid structure along its formerly damaged sections. "The first collaborative research teams are ready to begin work," Nathan said, his voice mostly recovered though permanently altered, to the resonant timbre that carried harmonic undertones. 17 human scientists will join the crystalline vanguard, and 22 Vasari researchers will establish residence in our lunar facilities. The delegation from the Proxima colonies reports similar successful integrations. Carex replied, the translator no longer needed, between them as Nathan had learned to understand Vostari harmonics directly. "The adaptive resonance appears consistent across human genetic variations." They observed Earth and the massive Volstaferi embassy ship framed perfectly in the viewport, no longer adversaries poised for extinction, but hesitant partners in an unprecedented alliance. "Your people still fear us," Kovacs observed, "and yours still struggle to understand why we would save you rather than destroy you when we discovered your vulnerability." Nathan countered, "Change takes time." "Time," the Versari mused, crystalline structures shimmering with what Nathan now recognized as contemplative harmonics. A concept my species never valued until now. We saw only the eternal perfection of our crystalline forms. Nathan touched his chest where the integration of crystalline structures had stabilized his once fatal injuries. And humans rarely looked beyond our brief lifespans. Now both our species have reason to reconsider their perspectives. Ambassador Travers approached with Zorvex, both carrying ceremonial documents that would formalize the Resonance Accords, the framework for cooperation between their civilizations. The Galactic Council has requested observation rights at our next symposium, Travers informed them. 17 spacefaring civilizations have expressed interest in the integration protocols. The implications extend beyond our two species, Zorvex added. The concept of adaptive integration challenges foundational assumptions about interspecies relations throughout known space. As the four gathered around the document table, a communication arrived from Earth's unified government. The message was brief but historic. Humanity had voted overwhelmingly to approve the establishment of resonance stations, facilities where voluntary human-vassalary integration could be studied and developed. Your people choose to change themselves, Carvex observed, to become something neither human nor vassalary. Nathan nodded, looking at his partially crystallized hand. That's who we are, explorers of possibility. And now, perhaps, that's who you're becoming too. Outside the viewport, a small transport ship departed the station, carrying the first integrated research team toward a distant star system previously considered too radiation-heavy for human exploration. At its helm, a human pilot with crystalline-enhanced cellular structures worked alongside a Vosathari navigator, whose living crystal now incorporated adaptive organic components. They represented something unprecedented in the galaxy. Not conqueror and conquered, not predator and prey, but something new. Separate species choosing deliberate co-evolution. As the ship accelerated toward the stars, its hull caught the light of Earth's sun, creating a prismatic cascade that symbolized the fundamental truth Nathan Hayes had discovered through suffering and science. True strength wasn't in perfect resistance or desperate adaptation alone, but in the symphony created when diverse forms found harmony together. The resonance had only just begun.